Why Bill Ackman is known as the next Warren Buffett.
Hi, I'm Bill Ackman. I'm the CEO of Pershing Square Capital Management.
Bill Ackman appears to be a hypomanic at first look, quietly striving to righteously avenge financial wrongdoing through his Save the World obsession. His current objective is to take as much of the world's capital as he can and return it, ethically. And who will do it if I don't? So why is he known as the next Warren Buffett? Let's find out.
How much money personally do you have to put behind this?
Whatever it takes.
Bill Ackman is an American hedge fund manager, investor, and philanthropist who is the founder and CEO of the hedge fund management firm Pershing Square Capital Management. As someone whose investment strategy involves financial activism, you may have heard him being called an activist investor.
Investing business you can learn by reading. Read everything Warren Buffett's ever written, watch every YouTube video he's ever appeared in. That's a great way to learn about investing.
In this video, we'll be looking at some of his significant investing movements that will explain why Forbes named him Baby Buffett. The Herbalife Attack. Bill Ackman announced a hostile attack against Herbalife on December 19, 2012. He exonerated the corporation as a fraud, pyramid scheme, and one that causes enormous harm to the most vulnerable communities during a 3-hour public short presentation covering a 342-slide webcast presentation inside a 500-seat auditorium at the AZA Equitable Center in Midtown Manhattan. He referred to the firm as a modern-day Ponzi scheme that should be shut down by the federal authorities. The last nail in the coffin came when he announced he had $1 billion short position and stated that his stock's target price was zero. Herbalife stock had dropped 42% from $41.57 to $24.24 by the following Monday, Christmas Eve, resulting in a market value loss of over $2 billion. In the midst of implosion, oil debts, and banks going up, the most current attack on Herbalife, released on February 9, 2016, has become the bust of the winter. Pershing Square Capital Management has published a webcast dubbed The American Dream Denier as the final knockout punch, couching the dog and pony show as a push for social justice.
Herbalife sells products, weight loss products, nutritional supplements, vitamins, things like that.
The documentary depicts former Herbalife low-income recruits losing their homes, friendships, and family ties due to the money funneled into Herbalife shops and goods, resulting in issues ranging from insurmountable debt to bankruptcy. It's an exciting time to be Bill Ackman. The after effects. With consumer activists criticizing pyramid schemes in recent years, some industry giants have left the Direct Sellers Association, including Tupperware in 2006 and Avon in 2014. Herbalife, on the other hand, has been given a lot of staying power thanks to hedge funds wagering on the opposite side of Ackman's position. Billionaire investor Daniel Loeb purchased an 8.9% interest in the contaminated business, describing it as a compelling long-term investment, only to sell all of its shares 2 months later for a massive profit. Activist investor Carl C. Icahn gambled against Ackman with a more than 13% investment in Herbalife during that period, as Wall Street observers loved watching the two rise and fall, kiss and make up in a protracted, high-profile, 10-year-old bitter war between the two giants. Ackman and Pershing Square Management. The salt and pepper-haired, 6'3", slim, self-assured, media-savvy hedge fund magnate with cerulean eyes, William Ackman cuts a formidable presence. He co-captained the Harvard Business School rowing squad and road crew at Harvard College. The enormously affluent, with Manhattan's most expensive penthouse duplex for $92 million, has a guileless charisma, but when he spits forth words with a flesh-tearing incisiveness at steroid-fueled speeches, you get a peek of an unusually quiet soul. Since its establishment in 2004, Ackman's foundation, Pershing Square Management, has generated an average return of 21%. When the S&P 500 achieved a total return of 1.4%, including reinvested dividends, its portfolio plummeted 20.5% net fees. This comes after the hedge fund earned a reputation for itself on Wall Street by amassing over $19 billion in assets and destroying stock market returns for its clients. Pershing Square has lost billions thanks to the CEO's contentious and some of the biggest ill-fated investments on firms, including Valiant, Fannie Mae, and Canadian Pacific. Is there a silver lining? In an industry where prior transactions generate credibility and success breeds success, Ackman defies convention in the hopes of using his mistakes to help him succeed. Does the man ever lose? Sure, Ackman's outstanding track record speaks for itself. Although the most successful investor is fiercely competitive, he is not without flaws. He famously bet his father $2,000 that he'd get an 800 on his verbal SAT in high school. He got a 780 after his father let him off the hook the night before. In 2012, Ackman participated in a 26-mile Hampton bike ride with numerous hedge fund titans and professional bikers. Despite being out of practice, the silver-haired hedge fund magnate surged out in front at an irresistible speed. In 1992, fresh out of Harvard Business School, Ackman and his buddy David P. Berkowitz raised $3 million to launch Gotham Partners, a hedge fund. Ackman devised techniques at Gotham that he would repeatedly employ, leaving no room for error. Gotham launched its first hostile proxy campaign against the real estate business, First Union Real Estate, amid corporate filings and the search for undervalued companies. It took months of squabbling for Gotham to emerge victoriously. The previously high-flying Ackman tried to put the First Union back on track, including a feeble attempt to merge it with Gotham Golf, which is another Gotham enterprise. As the agency rode a high-wire act amid financial losses and a diminishing image, investors began to express their worries. After several illiquid investments left him unable to recover from an increasingly grave condition, Gotham Partners faded out in late 2002, more than a decade later. The turning point came when he lost extensive holdings in JCPenney, Borders, First Union Real Estate, and Target as a result of poorly timed activism and leadership changes. According to his critics, his theatrics, enormous ego, and loud tongue makes him stand out in the hedge fund sector. Others fear that his fund is on the verge of collapsing. His portfolio consists of a dozen or so larger, riskier wagers on a few firms. No matter his mistakes, he is still triumphant. It's impossible to dispute that Ackman honed a strategy that he would repeatedly utilize throughout his career at Gotham. He went for large targets and staged his confrontations in a dramatic atmosphere, with bombshell statements that are more about the action than the words. When he initially ventured into activist short selling in 2002, he used this strategy. He published a well-researched report criticizing the Federal Agricultural Mortgage Corporation's management and reserve levels. Former Mac's stock had plummeted in value in just 6 months, clearing the door for a rapid gold rush for Gotham, which had sold its shares short. MBIA, a bond insurer, was right on the money when Ackman made a long bet that paid off at the time of the financial crisis of 2007. Without a doubt, Ackman has a stellar track record. In Forbes and Bloomberg's 2014 list of the world's most excellent hedge fund managers, the head of the $14 billion hedge fund was crowned top dog. Pershing Square made a 40% profit thanks to a massive and risky bet on Allegron, the Botox company, which accepted a $66 billion hostile acquisition approach from activism. While his short bet on Herbalife backfired in 2013, it paid off in 2014, boosting his hedge fund's earnings. Before its IPO on Euronext Amsterdam, Pershing Square raised $3 billion in a fund offering. Despite the fact that the bulk of hedge funds struggled in 2014, Ackman stood out even more. Is his financial activism style a boon or a bane? Unlike traditional bigwigs, aka some of the world's most successful investors like Carl Icahn, Dan Loeb, and Nelson Petals, who purchase shares and then devise a strategy to repair a firm, Ackman would kill a corporation.
The way I think about this personally is different than the way I think about this as an investor. As an investor, I am coldly economically rational about whether keeping the position on, whether taking the position off.
Like him, people who wager against corporations have long been demonized because they appear to be attempting to hurt them. We would know a lot less about Herbalife today if Pershing Square didn't have a strong financial motive to probe the firm. Few perceive it as a snub, but then again, not everyone can see the Ackman magic. Herbalife isn't being pursued by Ackman because it sells weight loss shakes. His problems originated from the fact that it was a multi-level marketing firm, or MLM. If Herbalife fails, the Bond King has pledged to donate his portion to charity because any profit from such a bad company is blood money to him. Sure, he expects the stock to drop, but he also stated that he expects it to sink to zero. Herbalife stock has lost approximately a fifth of its value in recent years as word spread that regulators are looking into whether the business breached the law. After all, even without advertising, Herbalife has a $2 billion brand. Multi-level marketing, in which your friends and family become salespeople, fosters an innate sense of trust, which helps businesses generate sales. These programs are not common among persons of higher socioeconomic status. It is essentially a game that most Wall Street CEOs are uninterested in. There are hundreds of MLM companies all over the world, and the sector generates more than $180 billion in yearly income. If the Federal Trade Commission intervenes and declares the weight loss corporation linked to a social dynamic to be a pyramid scheme, the company's operations in the United States will be shut down, and the stock price will drop to zero. As a result, this may be the shortest and most unfriendly short ever written. This has been dubbed blatant market manipulation by others. What does the future look like for Ackman? The famed activist investor called the next Warren Buffett has no plans to give up the game anytime soon. Ackman was asked how long he's willing to sit on this bet in a CNN interview.
Fear of confrontation, or it's just uncomfortable, don't speak the truth. And that goes for people on boards. There are lots of examples of super talented people sitting around the room as an institution is failing. Think of all the banks during the crisis where people were not willing to confront the CEO. So I'm willing to confront the CEO.
Ackman replied, "We're not sitting. We're shouting from the rooftops. They've never had someone like me prepared to tell them the truth about the company. I'm going to the end of the earth. If the government comes out and determines this is a completely legal business, then I will lobby Congress for them to change the law. I had a moral obligation. If you knew that Bernie Madoff was running a Ponzi scheme and you didn't tell anyone about it, and it went on for 33 years. After Valiant Pharmaceuticals, Pershing Square had a 20.5% loss in 2015. It shows how erratic the activist investors' returns could be, especially showing a 40% gain in 2014. Ackman did not put the blame on the unfair force of gravity in the turbulent world of hedge funds in a year-end letter from Pershing Square, which addressed the hedge fund's peak-to-trough fall. I have often stated that in order to be a great investor, one needs first to have the confidence to invest without perfect information at a time when others are highly skeptical about the opportunity you are pursuing. This confidence, however, has to be carefully balanced by the humility to recognize when you are wrong. While no one here is enthusiastic about delivering our worst performance year in history in 2015, it certainly does a good job reinforcing the humility side of the equation that is necessary for long-term investment performance. The lessons we learned in 2015 should be easy to avoid in the future. In 2008, we died as a result of our arrogance. However, if you're Bill Ackman, your Superman complex may be able to save us. Ackman refuses to admit defeat. His kind demeanor is what attracts opponents to his tenacious yet effective form of activist investment. With an almost scary calmness, he reverberates stress. Every wager he places is done so with elegance. For at least a century, no hedge fund manager or investor will be able to match his magic. Bill Ackman now carries more power than he ever did. What do you think about Bill Ackman? Do you think he is the next Warren Buffett? Let us know in the comments down below. Before that, make sure to give the video a huge thumbs up and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.